Yum, yum!
Greg here from Pixel Fondue. Happy Friday. So this video is going to cover a series of nodes called probe nodes. Now, I think these are really underutilized. I'm going to try and show some what I think are really practical uses for them. And a lot of 3D work, if you've done a lot of production work, I think you'll agree 3D is often just a big exercise in problem solving. So trying to figure out solutions to problems or desires from clients or whatever. And probe nodes are just another tool in the toolbox to solve problems. All right, so let's take a look at using a fall-off to drive a gradient, a fall-off item. So got my plane here, and I've got a mask here and a shader tree, so I'm going to add a gradient. So just down here under processing, gradient, I'm going to pop open schematic over here and drag my gradient in the schematic. And I'll add a fall off to the scene. We'll just start with like a radial fall off. So add a radial fall off and drag that to the schematic. And then we're going to drag or add a fall off probe to the schematic, right? So fall off probe, and this comes with Modo, and there it is right there. Now fall off probe, it's a little annoying. I consider this a bug. These channels over here don't auto load into the schematic, so you need to drag them in here. Just position, output, just shift click and drag all of them over here. And now we've got our fall off probe, which has an input for our fall off. So let's plug in our radial fall off. And just real quick, let me just make sure locators are visible so we can see my fall off. In fact, I'm going to change my fall off color here just to make it more visible in general. So there's my fall off. Hopefully that's visible. Actually, blue is probably not the best against a blue background. Let's go like purple maybe. And let me just use channel haul or omni haul. Press C. I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit so it's on the plane like that. Now what the fall off probe will do is it'll look at a point in space or multiple points in space and retrieve the fall off value for the connected fall off for that point in space. So if I have a locator in the scene and I drag that into the schematic, and here's my locator right here, right? So right in the center of the fall off, that should be 100%. So if I plug my locator's position, just shift click all three position channels, drag it in, add it to position. If I check the fall off probe value of this locator at 0, 0, 0, it should be 1. So I can go over channels, look at the output, it's 1, right? And if I move it towards the edge, it's going to start getting lower. And so I look at the value of the fall off probe, you'll see now it's at 0.6. And if I go all the way to the outside, it's going to be 0, right? So look at the probe here. Oops, not the fall off probe, the value is 0. So we're just measuring, it's just like, taking the temperature of the fall off, right? Wherever, at whatever point that locator is. Now we can use this for shading by replacing this locator with the gradient position channels. Just make sure position is at 0, it's at solid, and then size is at 1 meter. And then just plug that right into the gradient, or the gradient fall off probe. And it's unlike the curve probe. You don't have to create a matrix out of it. It just accepts that array right from the texture coordinates. And then we want to have the output piped into the initial value of the gradient right here. So now the output of that fall off is going to be the x-axis of the gradient, and the colors are going to correspond from 0 to 1 on that. So if I adjust my gradient, I think I can actually double click the gradient here in the schematic. Yes, you can. It's actually a good little update they did a few years ago. And then I'm going to pop open, well, let me just add a couple of colors here. We just middle click and make this red, and we'll make this sort of blue. Whoops. Don't want the alpha, I just want the colors there. And pop open my preview, and you'll see I've got it right there, right? So it doesn't show up in the advanced viewport. Again, it's just showing up. You see how it's changing there. It's just still showing the incidence angle, so it's not showing. That's what this input is set to here. But the renderer is showing what we replace that with this internal value, or this initial value, or I think that's what the in value stands for, initial value. There, again, I wish that showed up in the advanced viewport, but it doesn't. But you can see it's showing up here in the render. And the cool thing is, if I want to change my gradient, I could just move my fall off. So I can move over here or whatever, or I can use my channel hauling, make it bigger. I can middle click and change the, is it middle click for solid core? I'm going to drag out the solid core to sort of thicken up that middle part there. And it's just a really easy way to control your gradients. And what's cool is it also works in 3D space. So if let me do this first. Now that we have this set up, I can just, if I want to change my gradient, I just swap out a fall off, right? So I can add a linear fall off to the scene. And drag that to the schematic. And then just literally just plug it in, unplug the other fall off. And I'm just going to hide the radial. And now I've got my linear. And I can move this around, and now I'm just controlling this with the linear fall off, right? And of course, I've got all these little controls over here. I can change the decay shape, and or I can just control the shape right here with this easing gradient. So let me just pop open this, and if I want to change this guy, see how I can adjust this gradient. So it's going to change the gradient over here. I can rotate it. I can animate it. So one of the issues with Modo gradients is they're not animatable. But you can animate a gradient by moving a fall off, right? So this is just, again, it's a problem-solving tool, right? So we're using fall offs to drive a gradient, and if we need to animate it or get a shape or something that we can't get with a normal gradient. And these work in full 3D space. So let me just pop open this. I have this skull object here that I downloaded from Kixel Mixer or Kixel, whatever it is, Bridge, and let me just sort of show it here. There's the skull, right? And I can just drag my gradient into that mask, like that. Now, if I don't want this instance angle gradient, if that's bothering you because that's not what's rendering, if you don't want that to show up in the viewport, just click off the GL display and it'll be gone. And right now we're just overriding, obviously, this diffuse color map right here. So we can turn it off if we want to, like that. And then if I pop open my preview, push in here a little bit, you can see that's happening in 3D space. It's actually a little bit more viewable if I hook up the radial fall off here, like this. And let me just turn my locator, so I'll turn my radial fall off back on here, and make it a little bit smaller, and sort of drag it in on my guy here a little bit. Oops, like this on the eye or something. Which eye is it at? This one. Again, make sure that your gradient is at zeroed out. Your gradient texture locator is zeroed out, so it corresponds to, so it's not offset from where your fall off is. And sometimes that's sort of a easy mix-up because Modo tries to auto-size procedural textures typically when you add them to a mask, and it can change the textural coordinates. Anyway, so here we got this going on, and again, it's just useful. It's a useful tool to be able to control gradient with a fall off. And here I'm just showing a lot of diffuse color channels, but you can do things like I can change this. I'll go over here to the gradient and edit the gradient. Instead of having the color channel, we'll just do the value channel right here, and we can use this for something like transparency. So we'll actually go like this, and then we'll go over here to the shading, and instead of diffuse color, we'll just do basic channels transparent amount. And now we're sort of transparent in the center of the fall off, and dragging away to not transparent towards the edge of the fall off. Let me just change this to the preview over here, maybe get a better view of it, and channel haul my fall off down a little bit. Maybe increase the solid core with the middle mouse drag, and there. So you can see, like, if you're doing a transparency effect, obviously my CPU is dragging a little bit here. Since I render in Octane, I typically always upgrade my GPUs and not my CPU, so I think it's time for a new computer. But yeah, so you can do transparency. Now you can actually, if you do render in Octane, these fall offs match up to Octane fields really well. So in Octane you have spherical fields and linear fields and things like that, and you can actually hook up the fields to the channels to the fall off channels, fall off item channels in the schematic, and control Octane fields with Modo Falloffs. There's actually a video or two on that in Pixel Fondue that William made. Just go to the Pixel Fondue YouTube channel and search from there. It's better than searching in Google. Just go to the Pixel Fondue YouTube channel and search for like Octane fields, and you'll see how to hook up an Octane fields to like a Modo Falloff and control your Octane shading, just like we're doing here with Modo. So again, super useful.
Yum, yum!